Hello and welcome to another book haul. If this is the first video of mine that you are watching, my name is Anna Marie and I spent most of this year on a book buying ban. That ban ended back in June, and in my excitement, I have treated myself to quite a few new books over the last 2 months. So I've already uploaded part 1 of this book haul where I spoke through a lot of the young adult science fiction fantasy books that I've picked up recently. And I wanted to take the time today to talk through a lot of the ebooks that I've picked up, in addition to 3 paperback books that I placed in order for just the other week. So this video is more of a mix with the books. There is some more fantasy because I am who I am, but we also have some contemporary and some romance, so hopefully there'll be something here that interests you. And first, that would be Rotherweird by Andrew Caldecott. Not sure entirely how to pronounce his last name. So this book here, and it is another alternate reality fantasy, which I've just been reading a whole lot of recently, and I didn't think I read so much alternate reality fantasy, but I'm proving myself wrong here. And this one is set in an alternate reality England in this little town of Rotherweird. So in this town, back in 1558, there were 12 children who had a special gift, and they were banished by the queen to live in this little town. Now, in our present day, this town still exists, and it's completely separate from the rest of England, and it operates independently, even though it's still beholden to the rules and the laws of the 16th century. One of its caveats or requirements is that nobody knows about its history or its secrets. And then one day an outsider arrives, and he is apparently rich enough to purchase the town and all of its secrets. So there's a bit of a mystery element in addition to the fantastical here. This is the first book in a trilogy, of which all 3 books have already been published, which is so exciting. I'm in the midst of quite a few series at the moment that haven't been finished, so it's very exciting when I find a new book that the series is complete. So if I really love it, I have all of the material right there waiting for me. So I have high hopes for this one, and I hope that I really enjoy it. Next is another book that I snapped up immediately when I saw it on the Kobo Daily Deal, and that is Kings of the Wyld by Nicholas Eames. So it's a standalone grimdark fantasy, although Eames has published one other book called Bloody Rose that's set within the same world. And I am so eager to also check that book out because I have a feeling I'm gonna love Kings of the Wyld already. I have very high hopes and expectations. In this book, our protagonist is Clay Cooper, who was the leader of this crew, this band, who are now retired, but back in their day, they were the best of the best. They were ruthless and brutal, and they got the job done. So now they've grown apart, they've grown older, they're no longer in their prime. And then a former crew member shows up begging for their help for one last mission to go and save his daughter. I mean, the blurb on the front cover says the boys are back in town, which I just am so excited for this. I'm really hoping there's some dry humor, a lot of wit within it, and I think that's what I'm gonna get. So I need to read this one ASAP. It's really high on my list. In a completely different vein to that, I finally also picked up the Flatshare by Beth O'Leary. This is a romance where you definitely have to suspend your disbelief, because in this book we have Tiffy, who is in need of a place to stay immediately, and she works during the day. So she only needs a place to stay during the night. Enter Leon, who works nights and needs an extra bit of cash, and he only needs his flat during the day. You see where I'm going? So they agree to split the apartment where Tiffy gets it during the night and Leon gets it during the day. And for the first little while, from my understanding, they don't see each other. They don't meet. They only communicate via little notes that they leave one another. And it's a romance, so you know something is gonna blossom. And I've heard really promising things that it goes beyond just being a fluffy feel-good romance and also touches on toxic relationships and the struggle to leave those relationships, as well as the incarceration system. So I am really excited to read this and get those fluffy feel-good feels while also dealing with some more sensitive topics in apparently a really well thought out and appropriate manner. Another romance that I've acquired recently is Romancing the Duke by Tessa, which is the first in her Castles Ever After series. Now, I don't know much about this book because the description doesn't give much away. All I know is that our protagonist is named Isolde Ophelia Goodnight, which incredible name, and she's 26 years old. She's never been kissed, so of course she's a spinster. As a child, she loved fairy tales, but as she grows older, she becomes disillusioned by them and quite cynical. Enter a duke, I'm assuming, who changes that, and she finds her own little fairy tale. That's honestly all the synopsis says, but Tessa is an auto-buy author for me, so I immediately picked it up. And then the final ebook that I picked up over the last little while is Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. Now, I've had my eye on this one for a little while, and then with the plus-sized readathon happening in July, I figured I'd kill two birds with one stone, pick up a book I've been wanting to read, and also participate in what seems to be an incredible readathon. So this is Dade's debut, and it is set in the world of fan fiction, which I'm really hoping it chooses to celebrate rather than dismiss or be condescending towards. It sounds as if it's really going to uplift and celebrate all things fandom, which I love. I'm a huge nerd. I love fandoms, so I'm really hoping this is a good one. In this book, we meet our male lead, who is Marcus. He is a hot celebrity who stars in this show, and he secretly writes fan fiction about his own show of how he thinks it should be happening. And we also meet April, who writes fanfic. She participates in cosplay, and she uploads a photo of herself cosplaying, and the trolls attack her online because of her weight. So in an attempt to shut up the haters, I guess, Marcus goes on a date with April, and then they find out they have a lot in common and it's a romance, so something more happens. I don't know. This one is definitely going to be a book where you have to suspend your disbelief, but I'm really looking for some good fun with this one, with really positive rep for plus-sized women in romance novels, which is sadly still so few and far between. Now, on to the physical books that I've picked up recently. The first one, let's just get this one out of the way. This I have already read and loved it. This is Peace Talks by Jim Butcher, and it is the 16th book in a series, and that series is still unfinished, so I need to preface this book with that warning. Big series, unfinished, but big reward. It's hard to think of how to properly describe this series because it has spanned such a long duration of time and it has evolved so much over that time period. This is an urban fantasy set in our real world Chicago. Everything is the same except what is magical exists alongside humanity in the Dresden Files. The Chicago Police Department has its own department to investigate the supernatural and explain it away because humans and humanity have an incredible tendency to rationalize what they think they saw with what it must have been. So even though there are fairies and werewolves and spirits and all sorts lurking in the shadows of Chicago, no one really believes it. But Harry Dresden, straddles the lines of both worlds because he's a wizard, and he is the only wizard available for hire in the Yellow Pages. And I love, love, love these books. Harry is sassy and snarky. I wouldn't say that these are the best written books I've ever read, but I think they're the most entertaining. I bought the ebook when Peace Talks first came out, but I knew I was going to need the mass market paperback as soon as it came out. So that's why I picked this one up. I cannot sing the Dresden Files praises enough. And if you read this book, please let me know down below so that we can have a chat, because I don't know very many people who have read this series. In that same order that I placed, I picked up Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. Now, I have already read the Wyld Chronicles by Robin Hobb because for some reason I was under the impression that you didn't have to read the Elderlings verse in order. I don't know. I guess you kind of don't, but I've definitely had things spoiled for me through reading the Wylds Chronicles for the previous series. It's kind of confusing if you don't know what I'm talking about, but this is the first proper book in that world, and it's the first in the Flatshare trilogy. So in this book, we meet Fitz, who is the bastard son of a royal that is then brought back into the royal family to act as a spy and a royal assassin. And he has the ability to speak with animals. And that's about all that I know, because I'm really trying to go into this one blind, almost as a penance for my misstep in reading the books slightly out of order. But very excited. I've had this one on my list to read for a while now. And then finally for this video, I picked up Dragon Unleashed by Grace Draven. And how beautiful is this cover? I think that's stunning. I can't. It's so pretty. I've read one other Grace Draven book and I really enjoyed it. She's an author who comes super highly recommended from Jean at Jean Bookish Thoughts. So I adore all of Jean's recommendations. So I picked this one up. It's a fantasy romance and it's the second set in this world actually, but I really wanted to pick up this book when I saw that it was on sale. It's such a beautiful book. I knew I wanted it on my shelves in the physical format. I do know that the first book set in this world is available via ebook for a really good deal. So if I want to read that one first, although I don't think you need to, but if I choose to, I can very easily access that. So it says on the back here that we have a healer with a deep-rooted connection to the earth, a shape-shifting dragon with a dangerous legacy, and together they will remake their destinies. We meet Helani, who is able to wield earth magic in an empire where magic is outlawed and punishable by death. As well, we meet Malachus, I think that's how you would pronounce his name, who is a shape-shifting dragon. Dragons haven't been seen for more than a century, but they disguise themselves by walking through the empire as humans. So as Malachus goes from hunter to hunted, Helani must risk herself and all she loves to save him from the empire and his own lethal birthright. It's a fantasy, it's a romance, it has dragons. That's all I really need to know. I'm in. So those are all of the books that I have picked up recently. Let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these books or if they're on your TBR. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.